And yes, with the conclusion of the raffle, just as Trustaflump has said, we're now into Strongholds and Followers! It should be, D-Frog. I'm fairly certain that anything that I cleared from you is, it should be on its way. Let's take a quick look here. Yeah, I imagine that stuff should be out and should get to you before Christmas. And so as you do get them, make sure you let me know. And hey, I won't turn down if you guys take a picture of the collection you receive and you throw it up in the general chat. I wish there was an FLGS around here that sold individual minis. Had one only a mile away, but they closed down. I don't want to buy a whole box, so I'm stuck ordering online. Well, GM Vault, if there's particular minis that you're looking for, let me know, and I'll see if we can get them for you. I mean, I know it's online, but if I can be a proxy friendly local game store to you, I'd certainly, I would love the opportunity to earn that business. Alright, so here we have Strongholds and Followers by Matt. Oh, what a beautiful name. Matthew. Oh, well, I suppose I'm a bit biased. But this is the latest released by Matt Colville, DM. And tonight, well, really, tonight's going to start the process of going through this document, discussing it with you all, and talking about the content. Is this good? Is it bad? Is it complicated? Should it be modified in some way, or can it be modified? Oh yeah, I'd love to see the modifications you make, D-Frog. See what you come up with. Oh, gotcha, GM. Gotcha. And so for part one, I want to go through the introduction, right, about Strongholds. And then we're going to get into the keep in part two here tonight. And what is... Not just read what's in the supplement, it's only a couple pages. And I'm sure you'd all love to hear my lovely narrative voice. But just me narrating a PDF isn't as exciting as discussing it, bringing up stories. Or if any of you have this content and you read it and you love it and you adore it, or you say, I don't know, this seems kind of needless and complicated, bring that up. Let's have a discussion, right? As with any sort of supplement, any sort of content, even the core 3 rulebooks, we will have agreements, disagreements, things might seem vague or overcomplicated where they could be simplified. And I am completely open to having that discussion here. So your all's input, whether you're seeing it here for the first time or you have your own PDF open at home, well, let's delve into it, shall we? By the way, the art in this book, delightful. I really, really like it. Once upon a time in the dim days of the hobby known as the 1970s, the game assumed you played until you were about 7th level and then built a stronghold. In 5th edition, they're saying that maybe around 10th level is when that happens. There were no rules for this, nor was any reason given for why the player or their character might want to do such a thing. For those original players, building a stronghold was a self-evident good. It was just neat, and they assumed it would be obvious why you'd want to do such a thing. It meant your character was now interested in things besides killing orcs and acquiring gold. Treasure was a means to an end. As your character grew in power, they became more concerned with the state of the world. There were political conflicts and armies and incursions from other dimensions, and a single fighter with a sword, even a very nice sword with its own personality and special purpose, was not enough. You needed an army, or new spells, or extraplanar allies. The game transitioned from local problems to national problems to global problems. Eventually, your 7th level character fought a few wars or invented a spell or two and then retired, typically around 13th level. And that was it. The game had an end. This book seeks to recreate that style of play, but in a modern sense, by giving the players reasons to build strongholds. And we got a lot of reasons, smiley face. Again, this is written in a very, very casual tone. That's not said in an offensive way. It's you're reading as if he was speaking to you. It has a natural flow. It might stand out because you're used to official kind of tight language that is located in other rule books. But here it's not. And that could be refreshing. I guess it could be jarring as well, depending on your expectations. But I'm reading this because I want you to get used to this is the presentation of the PDF. What Diadems brings up the point. Matt Colville is a writer. You know, this isn't just some sloppily put together, like, whatever, stay up, power through an evening with a couple cups of coffee and bang out a PDF sort of a thing. In this book, you will find rules for 4 types of strongholds. Keeps help you raise armies and improve your fighting ability. Temples help you summon extraplanar allies to aid you in battle. Towers let you research new spells. And establishments let you collect secrets and generate cash. Every stronghold also improves your signature class feature, powering up your bardic inspiration or your monk's key. Strongholds grant improved class features because they draw power from the land itself. The local area around your stronghold is called your domain, or some might say demesne, but domain. Within your domain, your character is now, if not ruler, certainly a very important person, so the power of the land manifests itself in unusual ways in your favor. So think, Trustaflump can talk about this, because you and Shymek were talking about dragons in D&D time this evening. And dragons have their lair effects, right? That sort of radiate out and affect the land and the world around them. Look at, hey, Dark Wolf, welcome. Look at Strahd von Zarovich inside of Castle Ravenloft, and how that affects not even just 6 miles around the castle, that is affecting the entire pocket area of Barovia. Yeah, lair actions can be nasty, and you know what? In this case, they're going to work for you as a PC. Building a stronghold also inspires people, allowing you to attract followers by rolling on a chart. By rolling on a chart specific for your class. To your class. These followers could be mercenary legions or artisan peasants, foreign ambassadors, or fellow adventuring heroes. Large-scale actions taken by your new army, your stronghold, or your followers sometimes take months or seasons. Also, your new abilities eventually run out of juice, after which you must return to your domain to refresh yourself. This is called an extended rest. Now, the extended rest here, we'll get to it again, but an extended rest here is a week within your domain. Not just 8 hours to freshen up a little bit. You can't just sleep it off. And it'll cover that here in a little bit. To support these new options, the book comes with many new systems, including rules for warfare, in which units of soldiers clash, rules for concordance, which allows any character to plead with their deity for aid, rules for creating new magic items, and rules for taking your retainers with you into combat without having to run an entire second character. Okay, Dark Wolf. Hey, I'm glad you had a good game. If you gotta go, you gotta go, but let us know how things went tomorrow or in your DM diary or whatnot. And Coffee Cat, you're taking off too? All right. Be well, Tracy. Congrats on your win in the raffle. GM approved. Talk to your GM to make sure these new roles are allowed in their game. This book asks a lot of your GM. They are expected to run NPC followers, including complex and powerful special allies, figure out which neighbors are happy or upset with your growing power in the local area, and make combat harder to compensate for your new combat abilities. I mean, really, with any sort of supplement, you should discuss that with your, well, DM in this case, but GM open license and such for verbiage. That's a lot of work, and your GM might have different plans for their game. They might be okay with some of these rules, but not others. That is excellent advice and a good catch-all. You all may want to play with this concept, and it might not turn out, even in the middle of using it, it might not turn out the way that the DM was hoping. And so modifying the rules on the fly could be a possibility, or just outright excluding, or just outright embracing. Next campaign, we're fully embracing this, and let's hit the ground running. Alignment. It brings up alignment in a loose turn. It says, look, don't freak out about it. It's an organizational tool for who would be most likely to get along with someone else. So in this case, Mr. Colville is very well aware that, you know, lawful good isn't an encapsulation where all lawful good is the same, or a lot of the things that we discussed on the channel, and you've probably discussed at your own tabletops, virtual or in a heads-up session. Okay, with the introduction here, and I would urge you, read this for yourself. It's an easy read, but he made a very good point in saying that this anchors you to the world. And while the term murder hobo is used in this PDF, I mean, think about that. Where does, the murder is obvious, where does hobo come into play, right? A drifter, someone who doesn't have a home, is homeless. There's no real connection to the story, to the land, to the people, or the culture. And so why do you bother interacting with it? By acquiring assets like keeps or just other strongholds, it is going to further tie you to the land and instill in you a modicum of responsibility, as well as a way to generate wealth and renown and power and items and all of the things that many of us pursue over the course of a campaign. Types of strongholds. There are 4 types of basic stronghold, 1 complex stronghold, and many varieties. Any character can build or use any stronghold, although why a non-spellcasting character might build a tower is an exercise left to the reader. Maybe they have a spellcasting NPC ally. Hey, Raucus, good to see ya. Raucus Baucus, I've pre-read it before starting to this week's broadcast where we're going to be going over it. I enjoy it, and in fact, there may be a way for me to use the rules that are in here for an upcoming open campaign that I'll be running on the channel with you all as the viewers. So we'll see about applying it, but I generally like it. It's its own set of rules, and in fact, Mr. Colville accommodates for the fact, saying, look, these are lines in the sand, and I'm going to support them, but I fully embrace you all modifying any of these for your own reasons at your own table. And so I like the attitude with which it was written, the concept in which it was written, and then leaving the details for us to haggle over, or to go, I don't know, that doesn't seem right, or did it really consider this, and so we should, you know, add on more. GM Vault, my PCs are only level 7 and have a keep, an airship, and legendary weapons. And that's exactly why for at your table as a DM or a GM, you make those decisions yourself. You know, it's going to be highly contextualized on the world in which you're playing, and it's going to rely on the singular events that take place with the party and with the group, with the culture of the land and so forth. A keep is a martial stronghold for characters interested in raising armies and defending the local townsfolk. Barbarian camps and pirate ships, so that can even be mercantile vessels, are variations of this. A tower is an arcane stronghold for doing spell research and learning battle magic. A temple is a divine stronghold for summoning extraplanar allies and learning battle magic. A druid's grove is a popular variation. An establishment is an espionage stronghold for sabotaging your enemies and generating revenue. A bar, a business front of some kind that you're running to get information and supplies, or to funnel money or whatever. And yeah, so GM Vault, in your case, yeah, they're only level 7. I mean, only level 7, but level 7 is still, you're a notable person in your corner of the world. When you looked at most people that exist as NPCs, we're talking mechanically, they're like level 0 commoners. They have like 2 hit points on a good day. I mean, level 7, you are a notable figure. And depending on the circumstances, you could have access to influence and wealth, just like you're talking about over here. A castle combines 2 or more of the above into a larger complex owned and run by multiple characters, each of whom can gain the mechanical benefits thereof. Ultimately, the idea that there are 4 kinds of strongholds, and some variations of each, is completely arbitrary. You could easily have 6 kinds, or 1 for each class, or no types, just different abilities to buy a la carte. But I find these 4 get us 90% of what we need, with their variations getting us another 9%. And for those players who want a stronghold not listed here, hopefully the variations are sufficient to help the GM come up with a unique variant without much work. I like that open-endedness, and that he wants to encourage you to think about this, and to customize it for your tabletop if you don't agree with something, or if something doesn't fit straight up. There are 3 basic ways for the party to acquire a stronghold. They are, in order of most expensive to least, build a new one, renovate an old one, or receive one from a local noble. Yeah, just go to your local noble. He'll cover that, don't worry. Cost and time. The cost in gold and time to build in days for each of the 4 strongholds are listed below. These are not based on any historical numbers, mostly because humans were building castles for about 600 years until the invention of gunpowder made them obsolete, and there's no reasonable way to translate those costs into a fantasy game. This is a big consideration. How influential is magic in your game? Or black powder? Or are dragons, can they darken the skies with their numbers? And if that's the case, how effective would a castle be in such a situation? And so using the considerations of real life, but applying a layer of fantasy, if you can hire a couple wizards to just magically, carve a moat with their magic, to use fabricate. And so instead of having days to chisel something, it's just a matter of minutes or hours. If it's, to use rituals to guide things and to make things more effective. Magic and technology are in many ways comparable with each other. And so he does admit here that when he tells you it takes 150 days to build a castle, you're like, come on, what? It took like 10 years to build Castle So, if you look up historical records. And that's true, right? Because at the time there could have been wars going on, and we'll get to it. I'm getting ahead of myself. Anyway. Therefore, any cost we derive must first be based on the economies of a fantasy RPG. And that means that they must cost a lot, but not take too long. If it takes 10 years to build your stronghold, no PC would ever do it. Keeps and towers, temples and establishments each have wildly different purposes, and with different costs and different times to build. Keeps are larger and more fortified for defensive purposes, and therefore take longer to build, 150 days. Temples and towers are less fortified, but still usually made of stone and take 120 days to complete at first level. An establishment serves no defensive purpose, typically existing within a town or a city with its own fortifications. but your establishment is still well constructed with basements, multiple floors, and probably secret passages for your allies to escape out of or into. And they take 90 days to complete. I mean, look, in our modern world, you drive past a commercial corridor in your town, and you're like, oh, hey, it looks like they're building a new Wendy's. Even building a Wendy's in 90 days, let alone does it have an excavated basement, multiple floors, ingresses and egresses and all this. 90 days, even in modern sort of cookie cutter style construction, can be very daunting. And so, again, this is a line in the sand that he's backing up and is giving you the reasons for making the line in the sand, which empowers you to move it as you see fit. Even breaking that fourth wall and taking into consideration, how long does your typical campaign last? Does it last 10 years? Maybe. Some do. But if you want to get something done in a shorter amount of time over the course of a year or two, then this method would allow for a magical world to build a keep or something else in accordance with the PC's wishes. Well, and the DM's influence into the world. Strongholds as fortifications. Keeps, towers, and temples also count as fortifications in warfare, and that's later on. These fortifications grant morale bonuses to the soldiers defending them in battle. They also have a size representing the die used to track damage done to them, and a toughness rating representing how hard they are to damage. Because they don't attack, they have no attack, defense, or power ratings. Bada boom, here we are, page 10. A nice reference sheet for you. Now remember, it was saying at level 1 what happens. So if you want to build a wizard's tower, a level 1 wizard's tower, it costs 8,000 gold and will take 120 days to build, if we're using the defaults here. If we want to upgrade our wizard tower, we would have to pay an additional 3,000 gold and wait another 40 days in order for it to become a level 2 wizard tower. Hey, 12 for 10, welcome. And that's how you can read this chart. Now, we didn't get into morale just yet, and so some of these numbers you might say, well, I don't understand. Don't worry, it'll be in there, or it'll be referenced in a meaningful fashion. This is a note that is another point for you to consider. Since building or repairing any stronghold requires a labor force, it's reasonable for players to conclude that hiring more artisans and laborers will speed up the process. To a small degree, this is true, but the rules assume your workers are working optimally, so adding more laborers will paradoxically cause it to take longer. This is a fact in a this fact as well documented as it is oft ignored. Or this is a fact, I should say. The famous real-world book, The Mythical Man Month, details exactly what happens. Beyond a certain point, the larger your network, the more management it requires, the more communication it takes for everyone involved, and the harder it becomes for any single worker to find the answer to their question, get a task approved, or to get unblocked, or even know who's blocking them in the process. Therefore, we assume that times represent a group of workers getting the job done in a reasonably fast manner, and that adding more people to the team would just complicate things. This is a good peek behind the curtain at the engine which is producing these lines in the sand. So you could take this into consideration, the concept of diminishing returns. Which, if you're interested in things like economics, there's a link for you there if you want to know more. You could research the book that Mr. Colville put above. You can look into things like diminishing returns. Now, this is... Would this culture or even this knowledge exist? Well, you know, even if it's as a gut feeling, as, you know, a ye olde foreman of a job, you know, it may never have been put in a textbook fashion for economies. You know, we tend to want to be efficient. And I mean, you could argue that some of the great works that were built by just teams of slaves might have been built more efficiently or quickly or better if a smaller paid, even marginally, task force was assigned, instead of having to herd thousands of people just everyone doing low tier, drudgery, especially under the conditions. So just realize that this is why he has put the costs and the times down as he did. These are the presumptions that are being worked into the model presented. Magic exists, and that we're presuming that this is an efficient workforce that is working optimally. Boy, if we could only have that all the time, right? He'll address it later, don't worry. A stronghold belongs to whoever pays for it, and they are its master. If Kale the Wizard builds a tower, he gets to decide who gains its benefits. He may allow a sorcerer or warlock palace to do spell research there until one or both betray him, or he them. Only one character can gain the benefit of a given stronghold at a time, and each character can only benefit from one stronghold ability at a time. If multiple characters chip in to pay for a stronghold, or one character just spends a lot of money, it is a castle and provides multiple benefits. Complex tasks take proportionally more time and money than simple ones. So a castle costs 10% more and takes 10% longer for every basic stronghold function it incorporates. Example: Jess, Anna, and Lars decide to pitch in together to buy a castle. It will contain a keep, a temple, and a tower. It will cost 33,800 gold pieces and take 507 days. That's 10,000 gold piece for the keep, 8,000 for the tower and temple. 150 days for the keep and 120 days each for the temple and tower. Then an extra 30% on top. Multiply the time and cost each by 1.3 to account for the extra work necessary to incorporate many functions into one structure. Hey, you didn't suspect an econ lesson or other such lessons in this, did you? Yeah, you just want a chart to tell you what it's there. But this is giving you reasons. It's giving you things to think about if you as a DM want to incorporate this into your campaign. Or if you as a player, you may have a hesitant DM. But if you go to your DM saying, look, here's what the supplement says, and I've done the math, and this is the schedule. And so, a DM, I've effectively worked this out with you. And so here's a timeline that if we were working optimally, that things should be complete. Voila. The DM can then look at that and say, okay, I can work with this list over the timeline of the campaign. A castle cannot contain multiple of the same type of stronghold. If you build a castle with 2 towers, for instance, only one of them grants the benefits of spell research. Also, a stronghold's benefit only applies to one character at a time. A character can switch between which stronghold benefits they receive by taking an extended rest. The purpose of the design is, on one hand, to somewhat model the real world, where building a movie theater and automotive plant in the same building would, one assumes, take longer than the time to build each separately. For one thing, the different kinds of strongholds have different requirements, and therefore it takes more and different kinds of workers to complete them, and the more workers you have, the harder it is to coordinate them all. But also, one goal of these rules is to give players things to do in their downtime. Bold. Control B. Downtime. And this is a period for individual goals and initiative. Usually, when one of my players builds a stronghold, everyone hangs out there. All the Avengers hang out at the Avengers Mansion, but at the end of the day, Tony Stark built that place, and it and Jarvis answer to him, and when things go wrong, he's on the hook for it. Finally, don't presume that just because you, as a player, think it would be a good idea for quote-unquote all of us to build a stronghold together, that everyone else at the table agrees. In my experience, 1 or 2 players may agree, 1 or 2 won't care, but 1 or 2 players actually have their own ideas about what should be done with what they perceive as, quote, their share of the treasure, end quote. Make sure you've polled the electorate and listen, Control-I, italicize listen, to what they say. Folks who disagree often keep their mouths shut to avoid conflict, and this is a great recipe for breeding unhappy players. You are going to get dollops of from-the-table wisdom in this document, just like you saw over here. And most likely what you've already experienced as a player. Whether you've done your silent grumbling, you're like, I don't care, but I'd rather be bonking goblins than micromanaging the construction of a keep. You know, maybe I should think of something else to do with my Saturday nights. You know, because it turned into SimCity instead of, you know, Skyrim or something. So communication. Narrative reasons for different costs and times. Of course, what seems reasonable to me may seem wildly italicized reasonable to you. Each GM's campaign is different, and different in ways that cannot be predicted or detected by any given designer. Hallelujah, thank you, you are correct. And I am enjoying the self-awareness of this supplement. Because it does have, you know, you could say, well, that's just a throwaway caveat. Of course, you could put anything out there and just say that. Well, of course you can. But it's good to show you at least consider the fact that what you're doing may seem arbitrary, even if it's supported. Because it's still a line in the sand, and that line could be anywhere. You could support the line, you could use all the modern equipment to dig it, but why did you dig it there instead of 5 feet away? What's the big difference? Therefore, feel absolutely free to charge your players more or less, or speed up or slow down the time it takes to fit both your idea of what's reasonable and the precedents you've established for your game. To make these decisions seem like less like GM fiat and ground them in the rules in your game, consider the following. And I like this too. Can you as a DM, instead of just saying, I don't like this, and so I'm going to make, you know, I don't think it should be built in 150 days. I'm going to just make it a full year. And your players say, why? And you say, well, just because I don't like it. And your players could go along with it. That's DM fiat. But why? Can you make it come to life? Can you incorporate it? Can you give a reason, a story interaction to your players about what's going on? Strongholds take more or less time to construct based on the availability of local workers. Remember, this is presuming we have optimal workers. We can find everyone that we need at the given skill levels. We have access to tools and other resources in order to build what we can in the most efficient way possible. Maybe recent events in your campaign have made laborers and artisans scarce or plentiful. Whatever local problems the players have recently dealt with, it may have scared many valuable workers away from the area. You know, strongholds will take more time. Or, with that problem solved, maybe more workers are available and willing to help our stalwart heroes. Strongholds take less time. Hey, Victor, welcome. Yeah, it's good to see you in the channel here. The strongholds may cost more if the local area turns out to be resource poor. It takes wood and stone to make a stronghold, and not just any wood or stone. And there's a role-play example here. You know, do you want to build a stronghold with like immature trees, soft woods instead of hardwoods? If there's a type of tree that you know, has natural oils that grow inside of it, that may be an interesting resource. But if all of a sudden all of your wood is super flammable because of that, you might need to import wood from elsewhere, and that could delay things. So, very good example. Circumstances, both natural and political, may conspire to make your campaign's cost different from these. When is it done? Keep in mind that a first level keep is a simple Mott and Bailey and would still appear to be under construction when it is actually done. It can act as a defensive stronghold well before it's pretty and all the finishing touches are complete. It may be hard to imagine Camelot being built in little more than a year, but that's because the structure we imagine with pink walls and pennants flying is what you get long after the place was a functioning castle. You can make it look pretty afterwards, but right now you got to set those foundation stones. You have to dig your moats. you have to, you know, to make a pennant, you got to have a flagpole to put it on. And that's going to require the height and the towers and stacking of stones, etc. It's not heresy, Victor. This is good stuff. I mean, that said, if you want to go along this, or if you have particular questions for something you're running, I'm sure that you have friends here or elsewhere that would be willing to offer you the advice from the supplements that they had picked up too. At what level should characters get a stronghold? Well, you know what? GM Vault said that his have all that stuff at level 7, a keep, an airship, and legendary weapons. The DMG makes a basic presumption that probably around 10 is when they're going to start looking to really set their roots down in the world. You should build the pink in from the start, says Fluffy Sheep. Yeah, if you got to do it right, you know, it has to be in there. It has to be ingrained in the stone itself. Of course, you know, other resources like Redwall Abbey, if you all are familiar. Take a look at that if you want some interesting ideas for keep building or the like. And for descriptions. There's a lot of other really good resources. I mean, you could read Song of Ice and Fire, or Fire and Ice. I forget, Game of Thrones. We'll condense it. But read that, or watch it. Read Redwall. Or there's a 3-season cartoon, too. It won't focus as much as if you get the audiobooks, which are magnificent, by the way. Full cast of voices. Mwah. Anyway. Or you could read it and the voices are in your head. If you don't have them there already. So yeah, this is a lot here to just... If you want your players to have this as a DM, make sure you're giving them enough money to do so. My Tuesday players will tell you that they could barely buy a cup of coffee right now, themselves, because I haven't handed out a ton of money to them, you know, given the events of the Tuesday game. Now, if I wanted them to start investing in a tumbled wench of their own, then whether or not I'm telling them directly, I should be making resources more available to them. Whether it's political or social clout, whether it's money, or whether it's objects they can turn around and sell in order to raise the funds in order to build an establishment of their own. Hey, well, so Victor, this could accommodate for that. Very good rules for that. Good word of warning. Oh, and by the way, GM Vault, 7th level, therefore, is a reasonable conclusion about the time that they should be looking into this as a wrap-up of things, so good on you. Do not assume the adventure itself will suffice. Different editions treat gold differently. Some classic 1st edition adventures award many tens of thousands of gold at low levels, often in copper pieces, on purpose to make the act of getting the gold back to civilization a challenge in itself. Some adventures have hardly any gold in them at all. Not only does this vary from edition to edition, it varies wildly from one adventure to another within an edition. Therefore, GMs who think my players will want a stronghold should make sure they dump in enough gold on the players to make it possible. Now, instead of just building, you can repair a ruin that already exists. Any druid worth their salt or any other mineral will tell you nature is pretty aggressive. Without proper upkeep, roots and vines and weather will take their toll, and in only a year, a stronghold can require so much upkeep to get back in shape that it qualifies as a ruin. Practically, if the keep or tower or temple in your adventure has some crumbling walls and perhaps a few rooms or an entire floor exposed to the elements, it is certainly a ruin. And there's keep up costs, by the way, there's keep upkeep that is in the DMG. Repairing a ruin saves you half the time and cost of the final stronghold. So repairing a ruined level 1 keep would only cost 5,000 gold and take 75 days. Half and half, right, of time and money. Oh, God, all right. Well, then, you're ahead of the curve, GM. You're ahead of the curve. It's up to the GM to decide whether the ruin is a single-player stronghold or a castle that can serve as a complex that contains some combination of basic strongholds within. How badly ruined a stronghold is purely a judgment call by the GM, but here's a few guidelines. If it has multiple levels with many intact rooms, each level saves another 500 gold in cost and 7 days off the total time. If it has any wholly intact levels, each level instead saves you 1,000. Again, these are lines in the sand, but they're supported, and you can modify them if you'd like. But it's giving you some solid considerations for customizing this content in your campaign, kind of like what oh, hey, Bobo. Well, maybe Bobo wants to do this too, but what Volvo would like to do. You can award a stronghold. Any local stronghold in good enough shape to not need repair actually belongs to someone, legally. Some local noble. It might be currently overrun by orcs, or even sitting surrounded by forest overgrowth, forgotten. But as soon as the party clears it out, it becomes unforgotten, and the local duke or queen says, hey, that's mine. Nobles get really persnickety when a bunch of rat catchers decide some stronghold in the noble's territory is theirs. The local nobles start to feel like maybe these itinerant campaigners are trying to muscle in on their cushy gig. At the same time, nobles are not stupid, though they may well be prideful, fearful, or full of hubris, so they might realize any mercenary group powerful enough to clear out the orcs would serve better as subjects or allies than enemies. So typically, italicized Control-I, the local noble will be very thankful and generous. A duke might nominate the most noble and trustworthy party member, favoring lawful good or lawful or same alignment as the noble, and invest them as baron. Congratulations, you're a landed noble. As democratic and egalitarian as players may feel, unless your world is wildly different from a medieval society, the local noble won't be keen on the idea of an autonomous collective, Monty Python on the Last Crusade reference, running a stronghold. The players may feel like they collectively saved the noble's forgotten stronghold for them, but the noble does not recognize an adventuring party, quote-unquote, as a legitimate form of government. So while many PCs can enjoy the benefits of a castle, i.e. a complex stronghold, one that belongs to many characters, as far as local politics are concerned, one PC is responsible for it. When the local noble has a problem, it's that PC who's on the hook. Remember the Tony Stark anecdote. Furthermore, the local noble can simply award the players a stronghold as payment for some service. Thank you for stopping that local death cult. Here's the right and title to a small keep. Now, this may be exactly as it seems, and the players just get a stronghold, no strings attached. Not very dramatic, though, is it? In a situation like that, we expect there's some reason the stronghold is available to be rewarded. Maybe it's a ruin. Maybe there's some cost associated with getting it up and running. Or it's full of goblins. Or oozes. Yeah, that sounds dramatic. A cult of Orcus. Good luck. Ultimately, the rule is there is always some cost, either in gold or risk. Even a 100% no strings attached, no orc infestation stronghold will have required the players to do something incredibly risky beforehand, adventure-wise, to earn the local noble's favor. Yeah, Fluffy. Got it. I should give Ray and Tramp a stronghold. Of course, they'd have to earn it, but hey, it'd be worth it. So if you do invest in, a ship, a house, a manor, even just like a guard tower in the wilderness, if you invest, or if you give your players investment in their world, they'll be invested in the world even more. They'll want to protect it. They'll want to use it. They'll want to...
Damn time flings.
Oh, Bobo, we have a Twitch baby. Thank you on the 9 months. It's great to see you back here, Bobo. Thank you for continuing to support the channel. And I hope that you're feeling well, brother. It's always nice to be able to see you pop in when you can. Especially because of the time differences. There are political complications. Unintended consequences, right? You'll want to assume the PC's actions have unintended consequences. When you build, buy, or clear out a tower and make it yours, you make allies and enemies. You're upsetting the steady state world and have created an inciting incident for which see running the game number 24. And that is in the footnote. If you don't know what running the game is, I have got a YouTube channel for you. I mean, I do. I literally have a YouTube channel for you. See, conversational. So, you know, he's referencing that about what the steady state world is. But, you know, imagine that. The adventurers are going to say, oh, we cleared out the orcs out of the keep, and the local noble wants us to have it, maybe repair it, and, you know, come into ownership. That's great. But in so doing, unbeknownst to them, you know, other orcs or other, you know, other more civilized humanoids are suddenly going to see this as a power grab or an opportunity. This will set wheels in motion. You know, for every action, there's an equal and opposite reaction. And so it's also going to increase the danger in the campaign, because now you have something you can lose. That you know, no longer are you the carefree, I mean, we say murder hobo. Hopefully you're not running a murder hobo character. But before you were invested in the land, you could just travel wherever, you know, freedom was yours. Now you have some responsibilities as a yoke around you. My PCs all started with the party paladin inheriting a strange box from a mysterious dead paladin. One of them was a single black leather glove that tattooed 5 names on his hand. One of the other party members from the local town recognized 3 of the names as being buried in the local cemetery. They started getting weapons and finding more about the names. One set of weapons led them to the keep. Oh, see? I like how you wove that in there, GM Vault. All good, buddy, says Bobo. Haven't got much time lately to watch Little Your Sessions on YouTube. Well, thank you for at least visiting us after the fact on YouTube, Bobo. Look, I totally understand. You all have your own lives to lead. You know, you have friends, families, you have your own games, you have jobs and other things that you have to attend, especially on this busy time of year. And especially more when there's a time difference involved. Because, you know, you're 5 or 6 hours in the future. And this is early morning for you. And so, you know, waking up early in the morning, you know, for breakfast or just to, you know, do whatever you do, get ready for work, and listening to a D&D stream it might be inconvenient at times. So I still very much appreciate the fact that you're here and that, you know, you and others are participating in the community. All right, y'all, I'm gonna lie down. I'll be lurking for a bit, but I'll be muting the chat for the rest of the night. Happy Stronghold. I mean, all right, Flumph. And if we cover anything that you wanted to bring up too, because I know that you did get this supplement, Flumph, you are welcome to, you could bring it up. I know you're going mute tonight. You can bring it up tomorrow. You could drop it off in the Discord. And these are things that we can talk about. Even if you wanted to hop in voice chat at some point in time, if you want to sort of, I guess, like, we can co-collaborate as broadcasting DMs. Then that's something that perhaps you and I can do here, since we're going to be getting like right into the meat of this content. Like we're going to talk about, we're going to be talking about keeps, and in part 2. But for the rest of the content, if you wanted, then you are welcome to hop aboard. I mean, I did promise them if they complete my Jarlaxle arc, they'd get a super cool reward. Maybe the Stronghold, yeah. You know, they become minor nobles. They get a nice mansion. Of course, that involves them in the intrigue. All right, this is purely a tradition in my campaign, but as soon as the other players begin getting a stronghold, I tell them outright they can spend the money and it will get built, but they don't gain the benefit of it until they defend it in battle, as described more in a future appendix. And so he says completely, this is my own custom rule, but just because you built it, does that mean you can use it? You know, just because the Navy receives a new nuclear submarine, does that make everyone aboard proficient with it? Or does it have to be used? Does it have to be tested? You know, do you need to spend several hundred hours or more, you know, a couple years practicing diving and firing techniques and the like in order to really get the full functionality of the submarine and to learn its quirks and such. TJ says, my favorite part of the book so far has been the new monsters. So many extra ideas. I'm yet to really sit down and take a deep dive. We will definitely be getting to the monsters too, TJ. But if you have commentary along the way or questions, you can always ask here. Local tavern, previous home of one of the other PCs, was bought out by a couple gnomes. PCs found out the gnomes didn't want the tavern to run it. They wanted what was buried under it. They found out the old gnome's father was the builder of an airship for the original party, the 5 names. And they were a secret order pledged to protect the world from banished dragons. Ooh, this keeps getting deeper and deeper, GM. Oh, there's going to be a catch, Victor. I think you're playing that NPC well. Huh. I like it. An extended rest is a week, and that is a week in your stronghold. Not that you can't, practice or have some other downtime, like if you like forging weapons, but you have to touch base with your subjects and followers, right? You have to watch them train so you can fight alongside them. You have to, stamp the missives. You have to, scrawl out orders. You have to hang the convicts. I don't know. But in order to renew the benefits that your keep will offer you, or your stronghold will offer you, you need to spend a week-long extended rest inside of it. Strongholds unbalance the game. All bold. It's right here. A paladin with a fully upgraded stronghold has access to many more abilities than a paladin without one. This is by design. It's fine to let your players get ahead of the power curve. You, the GM, have all the tools you need to challenge them. You have access to all the monsters, and you can make them nastier than usual. And then he does have villain strongholds for some consideration, sort of like monster strongholds, right? His note for that: I think 5e is the best designed edition of the game, but I also think some players over-focus on balance, quote-unquote, because they feel the game is something to be solved. They expect a level of rigor more appropriate to a war game or card game. I don't have those expectations for an RPG. So, be aware. That is his own thoughts, his own bias, his own experiences that are being brought in here. RPGs don't always have to be balanced. If you are level 2 and you go into a dungeon and there's a sleeping dragon there, you probably shouldn't wake up the dragon, because the dragon is probably a CR 15 monster and you're level 2. Is it just a dungeon? Well, we'll get to that a little bit later this week, but I guess you could say it is, yeah. I mean, just like as a pirate ship, just a pirate ship, why does it count as a keep, etc.? Strongholds also represent a political framework. Many campaigns tick along nicely without anyone, including the GM, worrying about things like who's in charge here. Where here is quote-unquote this area of the map, or this town, or the area around the dungeon. This is perfectly fine. Many successful campaigns have run for years without anyone needing to worry about this. These rules change those assumptions, because a stronghold is also a symbol of power. It threatens other local lords. Even if your players have no martial ambitions, if they attract a few units of light cavalry, suddenly they'll start wondering, hey, what can I do with these? So your world, if you use the book, slowly transforms into one where there are local powers. These powers are usually nobility, and so on and so forth. Goes into local powers. It's easy to go overboard in world building and assume you need to have every detail mapped out. This is a pitfall we often fall into. Dozens of major and minor players, all the different barons and archmages and bishops and guildmasters can seem an insurmountable task. So don't do that. You only really need 3 other local powers: an ally, an enemy, and someone who is neither. And get into the details, right? Keep it simple. It can always grow from there, but keep the initial idea simple. All right, so here, let's take a 10-minute break. Let's refresh ourselves, get a snack and a drink. If you're sitting on a nice fluffy cushion or whatever, give it a good fluff. And let's meet back here and get into the keep and its iterations in this concept.